The grid is set for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Hey yo, Chris here, and you're tuned into the Delta. Thanks for watching. I didn't think I was gonna be able to do a video today about quali, but opportunity arose, and I always say when opportunity arises, you take advantage of it. But wow. Like, I feel like racing is finally here. Like, I love quali so much. I love the qualifying round. It is man and machine and speed, and I'm here for it. I get all excited for quali. And maybe that's just because all of last year Verstappen just won races so well with such large margins that like I had to find something to get excited for. But the feeling I get when these cars get out there and just get to go full bore and set out their best times is it's something else. But anyway, let's get into the actual day. You had your free practice 3, which I guess there are some things to note about it. It wasn't anything too crazy. Sainz was the quickest at a 130.8, and then Alonso was in second, Verstappen in third. I feel like Q3 or free practice 3, is one of those practices where I don't necessarily think anyone's really trying to push anything too hard. Your car's already kind of set up the way you want it, and you're just kind of collecting some extra data and fine-tuning by that point in time. But yeah, Sainz took the fastest time. It seemed that like Perez had some mechanical issues, which I did say in my predictions that I do predict that he does not finish in tomorrow's race, and that was why. It just seems like that his car is not perfect yet, so we'll see what happens tomorrow. McLaren looks quick, they're consistent, and Alonso is doing Fernando Alonso things and just getting the most out of his car. But let's move on to quali. That's what really matters, right? So we'll start off with the beginning, right? The first thing was that the conditions of the track were cool and windy, which has been giving many teams difficulties throughout the weekend. But nonetheless, you still got to go out there and you still got to perform, and some teams did and some teams didn't. If you start off in Q1, Alpine didn't perform. They looked horrible. They didn't get any good times. I don't think there was any cohesion with the team. Like, there wasn't a lot about the reporting, but it was just like it stood out. At the end of Q1, you just saw the Alpines P19 and P20, Esteban Ocon and Pierre Gasly, respectively. That's just odd. I said that I didn't think they were going to be good this year, and right now it looks like that's true. I just didn't think it was going to be that bad. Logan Sargent also failed to make a Q2, and it's becoming a little bit more apparent that maybe he just doesn't have it, unfortunately, because I really like him because he's American and I'm an American, and it's fun to root for the American team, right? But, I mean, his leash has got to be getting shorter and shorter. He's just not getting the performances out there. I could be wrong. Maybe he does stellar next weekend. Or maybe he finishes in the top 12 and something like that changed my mind, but I'm just right now what I'm seeing is just not it. I don't know what they have because Albon seems to be doing fine with the car. Albon advances to Q2. Obviously, then there's some other things like Kick Salbert. They didn't advance, but I don't think that's a surprising thing. There were moments where they looked quick, and you thought, well, maybe one of them or maybe both of them will just eke into Q2, but they didn't. And Mercedes just didn't look like they had the pace they had there on day one. Haas, however, managed to go Q2. That was pretty impressive. And one of the other surprises, I think, is Aston Martin. I didn't think they were going to come out and perform well today or just overall this weekend. And they might be better than I originally thought, at least on Fernando Alonso's side. I mean, he's just finding the most performance out of that car. And I guess that's not surprising when your name is Fernando Alonso. He's been consistently finding the most out of the car for years. That's kind of how he made his name, right? But moving on then to Q2, it seems like track limits are going to be an emphasis this year. I know that in quali it's a lot more strict than the actual race, but Gasly had a lap deleted because of track limits. K-Mag got a lap deleted because of track limits. It's just something I'm going to be keeping an eye on, because a lot of people get bent out of shape about deleting lap times and like taking on penalties or accruing warnings that turning to penalties. But my argument to that is like, no, the track limits are there for a reason. Like, I understand you're trying to exit the apex with speed to go faster, but if the track limit doesn't allow that, then everyone has to follow that rule. So I hope that is something that the stewards keep a thumb on. One thing that they're not keeping a thumb on, though, is the pit queue. Like, guys are leaving the garage and then just holding up the entire line. That's got to stop. They said that they didn't want cars to do that this year, and they're doing it like it's some silly fun games, and it's pissing Max Verstappen off. And I very rarely agree with Max Verstappen, but it angers me too. When you leave the garage, you go out and do what you're supposed to do, whether that is a practice lap, a race, a quali lap, I don't care, flying lap, hot lap, I don't care. When you leave the garage, your job is to drive that car on the track, not hang out in the pit and play silly games with everyone in the back. They got to get that fixed, and if that means taking grid penalties or time penalties or whatever, then so be it. I want that fixed. I can't stand those silly little games when it comes to performing on a racetrack. But I'll get off my little soapbox there. Sorry. I was kind of surprised both RBs got eliminated in Q2. Daniel Ricciardo was kind of the surpriser. I thought he was going to perform well, and I thought maybe he'd get into a Q3. I guess when you have Nico Hulkenberg outperforming in that Haas, taking that Q3 spot, maybe that's the spot there that maybe, yeah, because if I look here, I'm looking right now at the line, Yuki Tsunoda was in 11th, Nico Hulkenberg was in 10th. So, you know, if Nico Hulkenberg doesn't perform in that Haas, you have to assume one of those RBs are then advancing to Q3, and I did think that was going to happen, but it just didn't come out that way. Lance Stroll did Lance Stroll things and drove okay. P12, cool. Like I said, that's the mid-tier in my opinion. When you are the top of the mid-tier, you are P12. One driver's P12 and better, and the other is P8 and better, and it's coming out in that fashion, just like I thought. Both McLarens advanced, and I didn't know the real significance of that, but at least the announcers made it seem that that's a big deal. It had been some time since both McLarens had advanced to Q3, which is great news for Piastri, because I don't necessarily know what his ceiling is, but I mean, if you're keeping up with your counterpart Lando Norris and helping the team get into Q3, hopefully that translates into helping your team get points, and that's what McLaren needs. They need point getters. So that was about Q2. But we'll move on to Q3. That's the one that really matters. We'll just take a look at the standings real quick. Max Verstappen takes pole, Leclerc in second, George in third, and Carlos Sainz in fourth. Sergio Perez in fifth, Alonso in sixth, Lando Norris in seventh, and Oscar Piastri in eighth. Lewis Hamilton only got to a P9, and then Nico Hulkenberg to P10. So you got two surprising things for different reasons. You got Nico Hulkenberg P10 in a Haas. That's surprising. And then you have Lewis Hamilton in P9, confusingly, and that's surprising. So we'll see what happens there. I just don't think the Mercedes is as good as what Hamilton needs it to be, and I don't necessarily know why. I'm not him. I'm not in the Total Wolff meeting, but it seems like George Russell found the pace for at least one lap. So we'll see what happens with Mercedes. Can George Russell hold that top 3, top 5 position all race? And then maybe it's just like, oh, well, then Hamilton just had a bad quali and it just didn't work out. Or if like George Russell starts losing spots, you know, and they finish tomorrow's race like P9, P10, or P10 to P11 or something weird like that, then we can sit there and go, oh, well, Mercedes just doesn't have the pace for the long term. But let's talk about the front of the pack, because that's what everybody cares about the most, right? Max Verstappen took pole position ahead of Charles Leclerc by 0.02 of a second. Now, that gap might seem like a lot. I mean, I'd like to see at least the gap a little smaller, but I think Max Verstappen put in a miraculous final timed lap there. I don't necessarily think it was the car. Like, everyone's going to sit there and be like, well, there it is, Red Bull in their car again. Like, I think the gap between Ferrari and Red Bull is going to be tighter than what we all thought originally, and I'm here for that as well. Like, Red Bull versus Ferrari this 2024 season, let's go. That's gonna, I really hope that can like actually make the entire season exciting, especially with Carlos Sainz in fourth. Like, if Carlos Sainz gets a good start, I mean, we could have a race there where it's Max Verstappen and the two Ferraris, 1, 2, 3, and we could have some interesting racing strategies to go on tomorrow. Again, with Leclerc, I think they were on pace to actually take pole, at least on Leclerc's side. Just the way that everything was being, like, when I was watching the numbers on the screen and stuff like that, I think Leclerc might have had a slip up somewhere where he lost time. And I mean, it takes one little extra tweak of a steering wheel or one little correction here, and boom, boom, that's 0.2. And next thing you know, you don't get it. I was kind of disappointed with Carlos Sainz. I thought he would have done better. I mean, fourth is nothing to shake a stick at, but I felt that his final hot lap there, he was coming in screaming, and then he crossed the finish line and it just said Carlos Sainz fourth, and I was like, oh man, like, I thought he would have done better than that. Fernando Alonso did Fernando Alonso things, and he qualified in sixth, and that's more than I expected with the Aston Martins. Again, we'll see how everything goes tomorrow with the long run. You know, if Fernando Alonso starts in P6 and finishes P3, you know, hold on to your horses. Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso are here, and if Fernando Alonso doesn't finish in sixth, finishes in like 9th or 10th, then we sit there and go, oh, okay, looks like Aston Martin has some things to figure out. The overall experience I got with qualifying round was that it's going to be a Red Bull Ferrari race tomorrow. Assuming that nothing goes wrong or nothing crazy happens, just off of sheer numbers, it's going to be Max Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, and Sergio Perez with their cars, you know, duking it out for the top spots. Yes, I understand George Russell got into third, but that Mercedes just doesn't seem trustworthy, so I don't see Russell holding that position. Perez and Sainz should be able to get past him, and maybe even Aston Martin or Alonso and the Aston Martin will get past him. And then you also have Lando and Oscar Piastri in 7th and 8th position. I just don't think they have it right now to catch up to the front of the pack. So that kind of just leaves for us, like, the people that are really caring about the front of the pack, such as myself as a Ferrari fan, or if you're a Red Bull fan, or if you're like a casual race car or race watcher, you probably really only care about the top 5. And it comes down to Red Bull versus Ferrari. Now, obviously, there's things to look for. Like, I am looking at Daniel Ricciardo to see if he can find a way to gain 4 or 5 positions. I'm looking at Lewis Hamilton, seeing if he is going to find some extra spots ahead, or is he gonna like lose pace? Another thing to look for is Alexander Albon. Is he gonna find some extra pace in that Williams to push forward? I guess the other big one is Nico Hulkenberg. Like, is that Haas car really that quick, or is it just quick for one lap, but during the duration of a whole race, are they going to fall, you know, down the pack? When it comes to the whole race, I think that's the thing that's going to be the difference maker for Ferrari. I think over the last 2 years, they've always been the quick car in a one-lap scenario, one-lap wonders, if you will. But when it came to the full length of a 57, 64, 72 lap race, they just didn't have it for one reason or another. They didn't have it because they made a pit stop error, or they didn't have it because they made a strategy error, or they didn't have it because one of them lost their car on a turn or something, weird like that. This is going to be a tough one to go the full distance. I mean, Red Bull has been historically known to have very good cars on the straights, and this track has 3 long ones. So how is Ferrari? Did they do the necessary changes that they needed to keep up with that? Can they keep up with the Red Bull on the straights? And I guess that's what we'll find out tomorrow. But I think that's the defining factor. Is Ferrari's car designed for the long haul race and not just the qualifying round? And if it is, then we can have a solid, fun, not just race tomorrow, but overall season if Ferrari can find a way to keep pace with the Red Bull squad. But anyway, that's enough talking for me. I probably overran too much anyway. If you like this content, please consider liking and subscribing. If you thought there was something I missed or something that you really liked about Quali that I didn't discuss, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what other people thought about Quali, because I mean, I am kind of biased with my Ferrari fandom, that I really stare down the tunnel, of Ferrari. Well, what are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? And I'm missing all this extra fun stuff that might be going on in the background. So if you think I missed something, let me know. But anyway, until next time, take care, stay safe, and have fun out there. Bye, everybody. Hey everyone, thanks again for tuning in. If you're enjoying this video, you're going to love what we have over on Twitch. Over there, I may play many games, but with the F1 season quickly upon us, I want you to join me with some F1 gaming content. I am thinking of playing games like F1 23 or F1 Manager on Thursdays and or Friday nights prior to the actual race in real life. For example, if they are racing in Silverstone, we race in Silverstone, and see how we stack up as a driver or team manager. Over there, we can chat about F1, share some opinions, stories, jokes, or anything really, accompanied by some fun Formula 1 gameplay. Head over to the Twitch channel at twitch.tv/delta_4_7_G to join the fun. Don't miss out, hit that follow button, and be a part of the action. See you there. Oh, too fast, slow down. Well, missed all this.